great things about music documentaries is their focus on character, and we certainly have two great characters there. Really, if you take away the fact that they're two really great jazz musicians, the film is about two people individually trying to find themselves in a way.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you feel that they did find themselves?
No. Because they were estranged from their own place, of course. But and Dexter's life was, as it was told, up and down and in and out of the clouds, while Ben Webster felt very secure and happy in Copenhagen. But still, his phone bills to America were enormous. Benny Carter, Mary Lou Williams, and other people that he knew and loved, forever on the phone. There was no limit, because when we did up his estate, the phone bills were the heaviest expense, much more than the beers. Yeah.
Now, you got to know Ben, as we saw in the film. He became a member of your family almost.
Yes, he definitely. He was a fantastic person, a lovely person, and we don't, in this film, we don't see his humor and his ability to tell stories, and he had a timing also in his way of telling beautiful tales. I compared him once to, in a way, to Ernest Hemingway, because he had this short, to the point way of talking, and he also had a little acting thing going. He could, you saw a little bit of it. He could sort of do a Humphrey Bogart and stuff like that. He was definitely also a scenic person.
Well, that was a wonderful story about being in the bank with your late wife.
Oh yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
She certainly had a job, sort of keeping tale of him, didn't she? Or certainly to look after things like the money.
Yeah, well, she didn't look after him that much, but she would go. He lived on the Lake Street behind us, so she would go over there and cook for him. And I see on the picture that I don't remember his pad looking that messy, but it was. And my wife would go over there and open the windows, clear out the stuff. I remember one day. Does anybody here know about Eubie Blake? Huh? Eubie Blake, who became 104 years old, and who said the famous words, "If I know I would be getting that old, I would have taken better care of myself." But he came to the TV accidentally. It's a long story, and he said to me, "I understand that you have Ben Webster living here." I said, "Yes, I would very much like to see him." He was a very proper person. So I called Ben and said, "I have a guest for you." "All right, bring him over." No question. So we went up and rang the doorbell, and there was Ben in his house coat and hair sticking, and Eubie Blake said, "Boy, you better straighten up before I come in this door and open some windows." So Ben closed the door, and it took like 3 minutes, and Ben was coming out, like a little boy, because Mr. Eubie Blake was visiting him, and he was, I mean, the hero for since 15 or something. His first, whatever, yeah, and so they became very close friends, and Eubie would come. He stayed for some reason in Denmark for 2 months or something, and they would come and they would tell stories, and Eubie Blake would say, "Ben, you used to be a very good pianist. I understand you're playing saxophone now. Why did you change?" And this is 40 years after he changed. So you have a piano there. Ben had a nice piano. Go there and play something. Play Carolina Shout, which is the most impossible ragtime. Stride you can play. Ben said, "No, please, no, I don't do that. I told you, or I leave." I said, he was very strict. So Ben went over and he messed it up. And oh, please have mercy. Will you play some? And Eubie Blake, who had, have you seen him on films. He had fantastic hands and beautiful playing, and all of a sudden that whole apartment became a music hall, and Ben were crying. He would cry. The reason he cried on this one, Old Folks, that you saw a glimpse of, it was a recording we did in the DR, in the TV, and that was the day after Johnny Hodges died. So that was such a blow to Ben. He was very close to Hodges and the Ellington organization, of course. And it was Teddy Wilson. I don't think we saw him, but it was Teddy Wilson accompanying him on Old Folks. Let Tears Run. Yeah.
Back in the early 60s, you were a music critic, and right at the start of the film, Torben Ulrich talking about being overcome when he first saw Dexter Gordon.
Mm.
How did you feel when you first saw Dexter playing live?
I felt that it was like a comet coming through the house, you know. Wow! I didn't faint, but Torben Ulrich, who was a famous tennis player, by the way, now he's in another world. He fainted. That's true. I remember they carried him out. Yeah. And that little place, the Montmartre, of course, that sort of became an office. Ben Webster had his, when he lived in hotels, that was his office. All mail went to there, and he would come down there, and he would be, you know, that was his home also, away from home.
Well, one of the legacies, as it said at the end of the film, was the Montmartre Jazz Festival. You've written a book, Henrik, about the club as well. I mean, describe to people who haven't been there just what the atmosphere was like, because it seems like a very small, intimate environment.
Yeah, I remember that Eddie Lockjaw Davies once said, when the Montmartre closed, he said, "Hey man, you heard they closed the garage?" You know. And that's it was smaller than this room. But it had that ambiance that, you know, and it'll be all night long, it'll be till 5 in the morning, or it was a place, and you could smoke, and you smoked pot in the yard and all that. And the police came now and then in white cotton coats and never found anything. It was the 60s, you know.
Let's talk about the impact of Dexter and Ben on other musicians in Denmark, because we had Alex Riel, who's a really important part of the documentary, because his journey being taught by Dexter in how to drum.
He's still drumming. He's 75 now. They call him the legend, and he plays better now than ever. I had told Janus Köster, please, can you cut out one of the sniffles? But no, he didn't cut that out. I thought it was a little bit too much. But I heard him 3 days ago. He plays with everybody. But he went into rock music with something called Savage Rose, and he went all the way around, and then he came back to jazz.
Do you think it had a lasting impact on many of the musicians that they played with in their time,
definitely.
not only in Denmark but across Europe?
I would say so. I would say that especially Dexter Gordon, because his approach to music and the very long solos and the energy that he portrayed has inspired. I mean, I think there's at least 15, epigons, people who try to play like Dexter. You know, Coltrane, Dexter, and
various imitators. Yeah.
But Ben Webster once said, you know, it's a funny thing. He would say, you know, everybody's copying John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins and Stan Getz and you know, but nobody copying me. It must be that damn tone. He was really puzzled about it, because he thought everybody else get, you know, copied, and which is the experience.
Yeah.
But no, nobody copies me. Must be that damn tone.
Now, you did say in introducing the film that it's quite hard for people to get close to Dexter Gordon. Did you manage to talk to Dexter very much during your stay in Denmark?
Yes, yeah.
How did you find it? How did you find a relationship there between yourself and him?
He had definitely had a distance. and I believe it comes from heroin abuse. You become a different person. There's another way of relating to people when you have been addicted or are addicted, I believe. But can I tell a little incident at home with Dexter Gordon and Ben Webster and Johnny Griffin, who's also a fantastic tenor sax player. We had dinner and everything, and they started talking about music, and Dexter was a great fan of Duke Ellington because that was this fancy, beautiful band that he heard when he was a kid. And Ben, of course, played with. So Johnny Griffin says, Ellington, that's white folks' music. That's white folk. It's not. And Dexter Gordon slowly they were wearing ties and everything. He slowly got up, unfolded himself, reached over and grabbed Johnny Griffin's tie with his left hand. Ben Webster was sitting and was getting ready to swing. He was furious. And Ben Webster grabbed his hand and said, "Don't hurt the kid. Don't hurt the kid. He don't know what he's talking about. But little itty bitty, if you talk like that again, you got to deal with me." So Griffin became sort of greenish in the face, and there was complete silence. Therefore, because this was very dramatic, and Dexter was definitely a non-violent person, but this had pissed him off, and so there was this lull, and Ben said, "Let's talk about something else. How about let's talk about some sophisticated ladies?" All right, okay. So, but Griffin mentioned anything again about Ellington.
Brilliant. I'm going to put it out to the audience now. I mean, have we got any fans of Dexter Gordon and Ben Webster here? And I wonder how you felt about the film and the subjects, the issues that came up
Please.
in the film. Henrik knows many of the jazz greats that have come over to Denmark over the years as well. So.
Yeah, that's been my fortune.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say, we didn't know from the title what the film would be like, although we were prepared in advance on a short speech. It's very rare that you actually see so much kind of peripheral, so much incidental, what preoccupies musicians, what they do in their spare time. I think that was very interesting.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But that's. I didn't do the film, but I think I've seen it now for the third time. I haven't seen it for a year, and I think he got around to it very well, and we had this feeling, and I especially enjoyed watching Birgit, Ben's girlfriend, because she was so sincere, so beautiful, and she gave a good, beautiful description of Ben. We never heard from Dexter's wife. She passed in a car accident. Finja, with whom he has a wonderful big boy now. He's in the 50s, I think. So we were sort of missing the personal story of Dexter, because he would be also a very sociable person, and he would call my wife and say, "Hey, I have some people coming out, and I'm making chili con carne, but it's not really working. Can you come out and help me?" So Rosita went out there. I came later, and there was a pot of water with 2 beans swimming around, and so she had to go up and fix everything. But he thought he was making chili con carne with these beans, and he had big garden parties with Charles Minker's group and stuff like that. It was he was very, and he was always in a good humor and always very gentle when he was good.
thought that was a really touching point during the film as well, when Ben Webster couldn't believe the hospitality and the sincerity
Yes.
of the people that he was dealing with. I mean, was that a battle for him as well, to be able to feel that he was really accepted?
He thought there must be something behind it. I think it was, he'd been here half a year or something. He said, what is it with you people? Why are you so nice? I said, what? Nice? Are we nice? Yeah, you must be out to something. What is it? You know, I mean, these guys have been swindled and in clubs and management and being in a rough life, and Ben, who had no business talent at all, he would live from job to job. People would call him and and then they would give him, here's your $50, but I was supposed to get 300. No, but you have a bar bill. What? Okay, so stuff like that. It was humiliating, and here there was contracts signed by the general director of Denmark's television, and the money came in the bank. Wow, that was a new world, and they felt respected as artists, not just as musicians, but as artists, I believe, because there was the applause, there was the style, and I would say that Dexter had a wonderful home. We saw this little garage bit, but he took over, as was told, the whole house, nice little house with a beautiful garden, and he was very particular with it, and he and Fenja, his wife, had really lived a nice bourgeois life out there. But he wanted the drama.
Mm. I think that's relevant to what we were saying before, that despite the fact that himself and Ben really did help Danish musicians along the way, that issue of the drummer was still really important to him, wasn't it? And being able to find somebody who could really match the American drummers.
For Dexter, yes.
Yeah.
Ben was fine because all you need was a pair of whiskers.
Yeah.
You didn't have to play. Sigmund said, to play with Ben, which he did many years, both with Oscar Peterson, and he said, to play with Ben Webster was the easiest job. I didn't have to play at all because the music was there by itself.
Now, we saw some of the recordings that Ben did there for Danish radio, Danish TV, and I was reading that Dexter in his later years actually recorded some albums on the Steeplechase label in Denmark as well. Before he went back to the US, now how do you reflect on that work, Henrik, and the actual recordings that he did in Denmark? Do you feel that was Dexter's recordings? Do you feel that was a high point, or do you feel that he'd learned something, that the albums that he did when he returned to America in the mid-70s were
I think some of the live recordings from Montmartre, I think there are about 20 of them, especially with Art Taylor on drums. They are fantastic. With Alex, they become a little upsetting. It doesn't have the drive. But he did a beautiful big album with Palle Mikkelborg, who is a composer and trumpet player, called More Than You Know, with strings and the whole shebang. That's a beautiful album, I think. And the ones he did in US after he returned, I think are great, but to me that's he's what shall we say, staying in the bebop frame and not really developing until he started playing ballads for real, like Ben. Then something else came out. But in the US they wanted hard-hitting Columbia records.
Now, in your introduction you mentioned the Ben Webster Foundation, which was founded in the late 70s. It's very interesting to see that you have a Ben Webster Award each year.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the award and the kind of impact that the award, and maybe the kudos for a young jazz musician coming up in Denmark to be able to win that and to develop as a musician.
Well, we've had this foundation since 1974, I think, and I've been the chairman almost as long, believe it or not. And there's money trickling in,
Because it's from the
You know,
royalties
it's
for
a-
his recordings, isn't it?
Yes,
That's the money
and-
the foundation gets.
And we were so lucky that we were one day able to hit the jackpot. That was when was that? In '82 or something, because there was no royalties coming in from America, none at all. And that's a big Universal in Columbia, the big guys there in New York. And no, they wouldn't hear of us. And we said there must be all these. I mean, he's the best-selling saxophone in the world, they say. I don't know if it's true, but I thought Stan Getz would be. But they say Ben Webster selling all over the world. So we had a letterhead. Now this is going to be difficult, but we had a letterhead because with the Queen's, the Danish Queen's insignia and whatever, by appointment by Her Majesty the Queen of Denmark, which is true. The foundation was signed by her, and that opened some doors in New York. Denmark, yeah. Oh, okay, and then clunk, bam, $40,000. Thank you. And that money is not coming anymore. It's much less. It's maybe what shall I say? I'm not good at numbers, but I think it's something like if we have $20,000 a year, we're doing good. And the new money is coming from the air now, not the CD. It's coming from Polynesia and Japan and Mexico and South America, from Spotify and these things. And they're paying off 3 cents per time it's played, and it adds up. And all of a sudden we feel that we are gaining momentum. And each year we give, we've been giving many strange awards. We began with giving to like Ernie Wilkins and Horace Parlan, who also lives in Denmark. And we brought over musicians to honor Ben Webster and all that. But now we are more or less giving, if we have enough money, we give 2 prizes: an honorary prize to somebody who has been doing well for jazz in Denmark, and then to a young talent. And it doesn't get much publicity, but it works. And all of a sudden, these guys get, we haven't heard of him, young piano player, and so it's a slap on the back. And of course it's what do you call it? Non-commercial. What do you call it? Beneficial. What is the word?
A non-profit organisation.
Non-profit.
Yeah.
Yes, we get a lunch once a year, and then we toast for Ben.
That's finish at 5 in the morning.
4:30. Any questions?
I thought it was a fantastic film. I really loved the way that the interplay with Ben Webster's kind of footage as well. I thought it worked really, really well, and it really kind of set the context of people talking almost in real time about their lives. I thought that was
Yes.
really useful. And you
Yeah.
touched on it a little bit when you talked about the long phone calls back to America. And I just wondered about those moments when they might have felt that loneliness, or might have felt that connection with what was happening in America. And I get that they loved Copenhagen, and who wouldn't have loved the time there. But was there a sense that they were missing out on something in America at the time, or missing some of those musical connections that they did have when they were there?
I think for Dexter, I think it was a question of spreading out and being more recognized, because he would play all over Europe, of course, and have good jobs. But I think he wanted to come back. He was convinced to come back and become a big star. Ben Webster never wanted to go back, but he had his old friends there, and they died on him. His very good friend was Mary Lou Williams. They were sweethearts once, and there's a whole collection of letters from her to him and him to her, and a wonderful relationship. But like it was, the Ellington band came to town. Woof! Ben Webster would straighten up for 2 months before. If say April 2nd, Duke is coming. Didn't touch anything, and his hair was fixed and his shirt was fine, and he would, because that was his life, and Ellington was very gracious to him, and he would say to the manager, "Take care of Ben, take care of Ben," and Ben would come home with a pocket full of money, on top of playing, that was, yeah. But Ben, I don't think Ben longed for America. He longed for his friends, his musical friends. Yeah.
Were they friends in America, or did they become friends in Copenhagen?
No, they were. They worked together in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Like you saw a little bit of Charlie Shavers there, the trumpet player. He came and visited on the apartment. That was a good buddy. And Clark Terry came and also stayed a long time. So when they came, it was party time. And Jimmy Rolls, I don't know if you're familiar with that pianist, who was a beautiful pianist. He played with Carmen McRae. And he was in Belgium, I think. And he found out that Ben was in Copenhagen. So he quit the tour with Carmen McRae. "I leave that bitch," he said. "Come up and see Ben, and hang out there." And he wasn't any help either. He wasn't. But Clark Terry was very strict. One beer at a time, and maybe, yeah. This thing about the beauty and the beast, I think in this closed environment, I can tell you what it comes from, and yes. Ben once told me, I asked him about what happens with you when you take 2 snaps, and he goes, it changed 3. He said, I know. He said, I know. I'll tell you. When I was 5 years old, and I was in my bed there in Kansas City, and in the evening, a man came in and looked at me for a long time. He just stood there and looked at me for a very long time. And he had hair down to here. He was Indian. It's that damn Indian in me. I can't hold the liquor. And so I said, "Well, what is that?" So I tried to investigate, and I found some Swedish alcohol scientists who confirmed that some of the Inuit people have a very hard time. They lack a hormone that breaks down the alcohol. The alcohol stays in the body, and that explains also so many things about, what shall we say, what we have in Denmark. We have Greenland, people from Greenland living there, and there's always this rumor, "Oh man, drunk as a Greenlander," and true enough, there is something, and it's a hormone, and it doesn't take more than this much, and they're gone. And so that was Ben's explanation, said, and that's why he stuck to the beer only, because it wasn't so bad. But he dropped the hard liquor, the fire water, he called it, and I think it's scientifically true. I know it is, and I think that's a perspective to deal with. That's how Donald Trump conquered the Americans, giving them fire water. That's tonight, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is. Going on as we speak.
Did Ben and Dexter expect to experience more racism in Denmark than they did, and did you expect that although people would respect them as musicians, perhaps other people in Danish society?
Not in those years. Not in those years. Today is different.
But do you think some of their, when they said, "Oh, you people are so nice," do you think it wasn't just that they had experience of musicians being ripped off, but also as black men, all their experience in America was...
Definitely. Why these white blonde people are so nice, that was part of it, of course, yes. And because, I mean, they've been what do you call it?
Segregated or subjugated?
Suffocated? No.
Subjugated?
Subjugated, that's the word, yeah. No question about that. They could tell stories if they wanted to. About going south and all that. That's why New York and Los Angeles, San Francisco that was tolerable. But Midwest and down, and oh my God. There's so horrendous stories, but they don't talk about it. We had an incident. There's a saxophone player called Brew Moore, who was a fantastic Lester Young player. He was white from Mississippi somewhere. Tuscaloosa or something. And he talked like this. He had this southern drawl, and he was playing in the Montmartre, and the African American musicians that came in would say, "What is that? We can't play. We can't be here with him." And then that's where Kenny Drew, the piano player, became very important. He was a sort of a ambassador for black American musicians. He said, no, he's cool, he's beautiful. And Dexter said, yeah, you know, when I hear Brew talk, I see Ku Klux Klan, I see crosses in my backyard, but the man is a beautiful player and he's a wonderful person. So you shut up and you shut up and you shut up. You know, so, but that just that drawl, you know, that southern drawl. And Brew would say, you can't blame me on everything. I just like to play saxophone.
Henrik, to kind of sum up, really, give us you talk about positivity and trying to be positive about Ben and Dex. I mean, leave us with a really positive memory. It might be about a particular gig or particular track, or maybe just a memory, a conversation that you had with both gentlemen.
What you don't see in the film is that Ben and Dexter were quite close. They would call each other on the phone regularly, and Dexter named his son Benji after Ben. They were, and he loved Ben Webster. One night, and this is Ben Webster. It's his gig. He has a week or two in Montmartre, and Dexter is sitting at home, and then Dexter comes in the last set, of course, and say, okay, you want to blow, says Ben. Yeah, okay, come on. What do we do? Body and soul, says Dexter Gordon. 1, 2. And Ben says to me behind he had this thing. He could do, hey, is that movie Gone with the Wind? Is that still playing out there? And I said, I think so. I'll go and see it. I'll be back for his last chorus. You know, and they would tease each other like that. But they had Dexter was a big admirer of Ben's very special music. And Dexter said, yeah, Ben would say, Dex, yeah, you're okay, you know, but this Coltrane boy came and caught up with you, didn't he? You know, something like that, yeah.
Well, Henrik, I'd like to thank you for your passion in the film and here on stage as well, because I know as a journalist and a broadcaster and as a jazz fan that you've enjoyed many fine moments, many fine gigs with many jazz musicians, not least Ben and Dexter.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being part of the film, and thank you for coming to Dock and Roll.
And thank you for inviting me. I got paid to travel over here.